If you're planning on traveling a lot this year, having the right carry-on luggage can make a big difference in your travels. In this video, we're going to talk about the differences between hardshell and softshell luggages so you can pick the right suitcase for your travels. Let's start by talking about the materials for each of them. Hardshell luggages are usually made from materials like polypropylene, polycarbonate, ABS, and aluminum. Polypropylene is more flexible but not as strong as polycarbonate, so luggages made with this material tend to have a lower price tag than those that have a polycarbonate shell, which is stronger. So for example, this luggage, the Outline Pro carry-on spinner from Samsonite, is made with a polypropylene shell, whereas the Away carry-on or the carry-on roller from Base are made from polycarbonate. ABS tends to be more lightweight, but luggages made with that material can have some damage if exposed to high temperatures. In fact, travelpro.com, which is one of the leading manufacturers in luggage, especially for professionals, suggests that luggages made with ABS materials are better for people who don't travel as frequently. And to give you an example, this 3-piece expandable luggage set from Target is made with ABS. Aluminum is the strongest of them all, and in my opinion, it has the most sleek look. For example, this beautiful aluminum carry-on from level 8, but they're also the heaviest and the most expensive. Soft-sided luggages are made from materials like polyester and nylon. Polyester bags are known for being lightweight yet durable, and some of them even have a coating on them that makes them water resistant and less likely to scuff. For example, this luggage from Travel Pro, the Max Light 5 carry-on, is made with a polyester fabric. Nylon bags are usually stronger than polyester bags, and they tend to not scuff as easily, but they do tend to be more expensive. The most common nylon bags you'll see on the market are ballistic nylon. For example, this luggage from Tumi is made from ballistic nylon. Okay, now let's talk about some important features in carry-on luggage and how they differ from hardshell to softshell. So the cool thing about wheels on a soft side luggage is that you really have two options that you can choose from. Luggage that has 4 wheels that spin 360 degrees, and we call this luggage spinners, but you can also find soft-sided luggage that has 2 wheels instead of 4, and these are what we call rollerboards. These luggages aren't as common as they used to be because I think a lot of travelers these days now just prefer the 4-wheel spinners, but it's still an option. So usually with these luggages, there are 2 wheels that sit in the back, and then in the front part, there is usually a plastic handle that balances it. This is actually pretty useful when you are staying in place. So for example, if you are waiting in line for boarding, or if you are standing in line waiting to order food at a restaurant at the airport or something like that. So with the 4-wheel spinner, you're usually pushing the bag next to you. There's more of like a push motion happening, whereas with the rollerboard, the 2 wheels, you're usually pulling it behind you, so there's more of a pull motion, which can be really helpful when you're trying to rush through the airport, or I find that they are often better on carpet and on cobblestone streets, which you'll find a lot of around the world. But also, just because you have a 4-wheel spinner doesn't mean that you can't pull it behind you, so you have both options. The wheels on a hard shell luggage are pretty much exclusively spinners, and most of the time with these hard shell luggages, there is this double wheel design as opposed to the single wheel construction that you usually find with a lot of soft shell luggages. And this isn't always the case, but this is generally what I find when I'm comparing the wheels from a soft shell luggage and a hardshell luggage. Now, most travel experts might say that the double wheel makes for a stronger wheel in general. I don't know much about that since I'm not a wheel expert, but I would probably assume the same. So let's talk zippers and locks. It used to be that a lot of the soft-sided luggages did not come with a built-in TSA combination lock. We can see this, for example, with the beautiful Le Peau Plume packing case. Although it does come with a TSA lock, it's not built in. However, this is changing more and more, especially with a lot of the newer soft-sided luggages that are coming out. Something that I think a lot of people love about soft-sided luggages is the expandable zipper. Not all soft-sided luggages have this, but a lot of them do, where they have this extra zipper on the exterior that allows you to expand your luggage if you need a couple extra inches. You can find some hardshell luggages with this expandable feature. For example, the July carry-on light expandable or the Base carry-on roller. Both of these luggages are expandable. And while you can find hardshell luggages with that expandable feature, like the 2 that I just talked about, they're not that common in with the hardshell suitcases. And because of that, you'll need to make sure that your zipper is sturdy. I know most people would say that YKK is one of the best zipper manufacturers. I would tend to agree. I know that Away uses YKK zippers. I believe Monos does too, and Samsonite, but there are also tons of luggages that use YKK zippers. And of course, with most of the newer hardshell luggages, you are going to find that built-in TSA combination lock, either on the top or on the side. So now let's talk about a feature that is important to a lot of people, and that's pockets. I hear often from Team Softside that one of the biggest reasons why they love using soft-sided luggage is for the exterior pockets. You will be hard-pressed to find a decent soft-sided luggage that does not have at least one exterior pocket. And this can definitely come in handy when you're standing in the security line and you need to bring out your passport and your travel documents quickly. Most hardshell luggages do not have an exterior pocket. Of course, there are some on the market that do have an exterior pocket, and most of those, usually what you'll find with those is a large pocket on the outside, normally in the front, and then inside of that there are smaller pockets within that. Now that we've covered some of the important features with carry-on luggage, let's now talk about the interior design and packing with each type of bag. What you'll find with most hard-sided luggage is that it's split right down the middle, so it has a clamshell opening. So when you open it, there are two compartments that you're working with. You can dedicate specific items to a certain side, and if you're using packing cubes, you can organize them like a puzzle. One side usually has a zipped compartment, and the other side usually has a compression strap that helps hold your items in place. To pack with a hardshell luggage, I usually pack my heaviest items on the bottom of the bag where the wheels are, and I usually pack my clothing on one side and my shoes and toiletries on the other side. I feel like because hardshell luggages usually have two compartments that you can pack with, there is an assumption that it has more room or it can hold more stuff, but that's just not the case. Soft-sided suitcases don't have that split construction that most hard-sided suitcases have, because instead the opening is usually at the front of the suitcase. So once you zip it open, there is just one large compartment, but that compartment is deeper. A lot of soft-sided luggages often have the compression straps as well to hold your items in place. And the little thing that I love about soft-sided luggages is because of its construction, you can usually slightly open a soft-sided luggage and stick your hand in and usually find that item that you're looking for. So for example, a blanket or something like that. So to pack with a soft-sided luggage, I usually do the exact same thing with the hard-sided luggages in terms of putting my heaviest items on the bottom towards the wheels, but I tend to stack my cubes and really take advantage of all the corners and crevices. If you are on the lookout for luggage and you're still trying to decide and you want to know more about the common or popular brands for each type of luggage, check the description box below because I'll have some information down there for you. Now let's talk about some pros and cons with each type of bag. One major pro of hardshell luggage is that it tends to be really easy to clean and maintain. You can use something like a magic eraser or a damp cloth to wipe down the outside and the wheels, and then you can use a mini vacuum or another damp cloth to wipe out the inside. And normally if something spills on the outside like coffee or something like that, it's most likely not going to leave a stain and can easily be cleaned up. If you are walking through rain with your hard-sided luggage, you might have a little bit of leakage that happens right at the zippers, but for the most part, a lot of your stuff is gonna remain pretty dry. The 360-degree spin wheels are so fantastic on hardshell luggages when you are going down the aisle of an airplane. You can push it directly in front of you, and most of the time you're not gonna be hitting people. Because of the hard exterior, I find that hardshell luggages tend to be better against bed bugs. Bed bugs are hitchhikers by nature, so they can be kind of tricky to deal with. If you already have bed bugs on your clothing and in your belongings, and then that goes inside your suitcase, that's a whole other story, and having a hardshell suitcase in that instance is not going to help you. However, if you are arriving to a hotel or an accommodation and you are checking the bed first for bed bugs and you notice that there might be something there, then I feel like there's less of a chance of them coming home with you because the material is harder for them to attach to as opposed to fabric. Another pro with some hardshell luggages that some travelers have found is that some of them don't have zippers and instead they have clasps, especially the ones that are more of that trunk style. I have read a few places that some travelers actually find that having the clasps instead of the zipper helps them against theft. Now, I don't know if this is true, but I have heard this from a couple of people, so I put it as a pro. Let me know what you think in the comments. Another advantage to the hardshell suitcases that a lot of travelers have found, myself included, is that depending on your packing needs, that clamshell opening can really help with packing, especially if you are big on organization. Hardshell suitcases are also easier to stack. Now in this video, I'm talking specifically about carry-on luggage, but most of us that love carry-on only have certainly been in the position where you are boarding an airplane and the overhead bin space is full and you have to check your bag. And I've heard baggage handlers say that in these instances, hardshell luggages are the way to go. They are easier to stack and they are less likely to get snagged on things in the process. Some cons of hardshell luggages: a lot of them don't have that extra handle at the bottom of the suitcase. I like to hold it top to bottom, and I find with softshell luggages that handle is usually there, which makes it a lot easier for me personally to put it into the overhead bin. Another con is that most of them don't have that exterior pocket that we talked about. But I know for a lot of travelers, and maybe yourself included, these exterior pockets are very important to you. Sometimes with hardshell luggages, they are harder to place and use on a luggage rack. Now there are usually two types of luggage rack designs. There are some that open flat, and with that I have had no problem with placing my hardshell luggage on. I place it horizontally and then open it that way, and there's a balanced weight between each side, so I don't normally have a problem. But some luggage racks do look like this. And these are the ones that I think a lot of people with hardshell luggages have trouble using, myself included. Now let's talk about advantages and pros of soft-sided luggage. As I mentioned earlier, soft-sided luggages tend to be more lightweight, so this means that you can pack a tad bit more if you need to. Again, the outer pockets with the luggage rack that I just talked about, with soft-sided luggages, you really don't have to worry. They tend to do really well on both kinds of luggage racks. And most soft-sided luggages have that extra handle at the bottom of the suitcase. So usually they have one on the top, one on the side, and one on the bottom, which is very useful. Another pro with soft-sided luggage is that they have a bit more give on the outside because they're more flexible. A lot of them have that expandable zipper, so you have a little bit more extra space. The cons of the soft-sided luggage, as I mentioned earlier, although a lot of the newer ones do have that built-in TSA lock, there's still a lot of soft-sided luggages on the market that just don't have that built-in TSA lock. Again, that doesn't stop you from using a lock. There are plenty of TSA approved travel locks that you can buy. However, having one built in is just so convenient. And because of the fabric material of soft-sided suitcases, they are more prone to stains. And I know that some of them have that protective coating, but I just feel like it just doesn't compare to that hard plastic that comes with the hard-sided suitcases. Now, deciding between the hardshell suitcases or the soft-sided suitcases, it's really up to you. It really is such a personal preference, but if you are having a hard time deciding between the two, to make a better decision, I would suggest making a list of all of the things that are important for you when you're traveling. You'll also want to think about the kinds of trips that you're most likely going to take and the weather that you might face while you're traveling. And also, to take a little bit of the pressure off, you don't have to decide. I like them both. I do tend to lean a little bit more towards the hard-shelled luggages, but you don't have to decide. If you really don't want to and you want to travel with both, you can do that. If you need help with packing, check out this video here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.